Welcome, Nakula. Happy that you're here.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I really look forward to having this conversation. So, like as you mentioned, my name is Nakula Das, and I help men master. And I'm gonna use I generally say the word S3X to talk about. I'll say it once, sexuality, only from the algorithm, so it doesn't think we're adult content. But
Wow.
yeah, so I help men master their S3X energy to unleash their God-given abilities.
Wow. And this is such a specific topic. I just learned about it a few weeks ago when you joined a bum pum call because I never heard of
Mm.
it, and especially not that there was work in this area. But obviously, there is a lot of work in this area. And so maybe you want to explain a little bit more about what drove you to this journey.
Yeah, so I was introduced to the topic. So the book Think and Grow Rich. So if anybody out there listening hasn't read the book Think and Grow Rich, I highly recommend it. And if you flip to chapter 11 is called The Mystery of S3X Transmutation. And so this is where I was introduced to the concept first, which was that basically stated that transmutation means taking something from one line and putting it to another line. So in this case, talking about taking our inherent S3X desire, our drive, which is a base desire. We have a few base desires, and two I'll specifically mention. One is to eat, and one is to reproduce. And this is a universal experience, right? So everybody understands desire in this way. So basically, to take that physical desire or that S3X desire and transmute it or put that same desire into a different line. And so, what Napoleon Hill said, and again, if those aren't familiar with Napoleon Hill or the book Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill did a 25-year study on the most successful people on the planet right after the Great Depression in America. So he hung out with some of the names that we know today, Carnegie and Rockefeller, and these kind of big bankers, Henry Ford, and he said that they all understood this was actually a knowledge, like a book of knowledge in which very, very successful men understood and understand to this day. And I'll give you modern examples of how it's being used. But basically, he said that, just to kind of summarize the chapters, he said that if a man doesn't learn to harness this energy and direct it, that he will never go above and beyond just survival. He will just simply survive. And unless he can harness that energy and redirect it and that drive to higher purposes, and his context was about accumulating riches or building a business and generating wealth, that basically it wasn't going to happen. And he said it's actually the differentiating factor between very successful men and non-successful men. Now, what's interesting is he doesn't take a repression approach. So, in my own journey with this is how I was introduced to the concept, and then through my spiritual journey, and I've studied the major world religions, and my name Nakula Das was given to me by a monk, all right, through the Hare Krishna community. I was born Christian, and I said I've studied the major scriptures and a lot of, let's say call it esoteric or occult type knowledge. And what I discovered is that this is actually prevalent in all. It's one of the things that all religions agree on. They disagree on so many things, right? This one they actually all agree on, which is really interesting. So I find it's a unifying point as well. They all agree and they all have some way of presenting that we must control as human beings or harness this energy. And that if we don't, it actually drops us into survival consciousness or animal consciousness. So we're just going to do our basic things to survive, but we won't do anything above and beyond. And one of the uniqueness of the human form of life is that we can rise above or transcend or utilize our desire in more ways than a physical expression. And so through studying and my own journey, and we're talking like I'm condensing a 10 to now all close to 15-year journey of going down this rabbit hole, and I'm still down the rabbit hole and still learning more and more and more. I discovered all of this wisdom and knowledge on all of these different traditions, from the yogis, from the Taoists, mystic Christians, that really talked about the secrets or the mysteries around our S3X energy and how it can really be harnessed and used, and how its life force and giving and its power above the physical expression. And so I started studying with some Taoist masters and yogic masters and tantric masters who started teaching me these practices and harnessing it. And what I really saw through my own journey is that we have a problem or a challenge, let's say, in today's world that is very relevant in today's world that wasn't around, even a few hundred, even 50 years ago, which is adult content. And the emergence of the adult content online, and how it is really diminishing that energy, and that it has some serious consequences that needs to be addressed and talked about in a very mature way, educative way, but also needs to be challenged on how much is this actually playing a detriment into our modern culture and society.
Wow, it's an amazing, amazing story that you're sharing here. And but also, what I experience in my practice also, because I speak with men and women, sexuality is a big issue for a lot of people,
Oh, yes.
of course. But there's also a lot of misunderstanding in how we experience it as a woman and as a man, but
Mm.
also how we interpreted it. So a lot of men think that they have to be masculine. In order to be masculine, they have to perform. So how do you weave that into your story when you're working with men who are trying to seek for solutions or to control their, yeah, that it's maybe not, the need is not the right word, but maybe that's something you can explain a little bit better.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, everybody, like as you said, it's interesting because one, sometimes it can be a taboo subject, and so one of the let's say advocacy portions of what I do is just breaking the taboo. Statistically, there was a study done. I think it was in the early 2000s, maybe the 90s. I think it was early 2000s at the University of Montreal. They wanted to do a study on the brain and what adult content has done to the brain. Now, to do a proper scientific study, you need a control group. So you need brains that have never been exposed. They couldn't do the study because they didn't have a control group. They couldn't find one person in the entire university that had not at least watched some form of adult content, right? And then there's different degrees to how much somebody can be involved with that. And so we have to understand that it's kind of like an all-pervading thing, and everybody has S3X energy. This was funny because this was years ago. I prayed to God. I said, God, I want something that transcends religions and politics. I want to just be of service to humanity. And what I heard God say to me was sex. Right? And I thought, well, geez, like, because I grew up like Catholic, right? Like, that's bad, right? And I thought, geez, and he's like, yeah. The understanding that I received was this subject is highly misunderstood, and it's all unifying because no matter an atheist, it doesn't matter whether you're a person of God or not, or it doesn't matter, right? It actually is irrelevant. We all as human beings understand sexual desire, and because of that, we can all relate to it in some way. We just need to break the taboo and be open to talking about it. Now, when it comes to masculine, feminine energy, that's another subject that's kind of lost in today's world, a book of knowledge that's essentially been lost and very much confused in today's world. So for men, our egos are very highly interlinked with our performance in the bedroom, right? Our ability to attract a woman, our ability to please a woman, our ability to perform is very much tied into our ego. From my understanding, not so much for women. It's very different in that sense, right? And so, because of that, as men, we should understand that it's part of our drive, it's part of our nature, and that we can then use it. And that's what Napoleon Hill said. We can then use it to actually stimulate our greatness. So for a man, depending on what he's going through or dealing with, from anything from like an adult content addiction or vice, he's just addicted to it, which there's tons of studies to show how addictive it is. Excessive adult content, when somebody's really watching it, has actually been known to reduce gray brain matter, and specifically the striatum and the prefrontal cortex. So this is our decision making. our compulsive behavior, our ability to see long term, that gets reduced. And so essentially what adult content is doing, mainly for men, it's an increasing problem in women too. Women are also addicted and watching more adult content now than before. It is still more heavenly based for men. Um, but we're seeing it in women as well. Is basically it makes you more compulsive. So it's no different than any other drug on the planet. And in fact, it could be even tougher than most drugs on the planet because it is an energy that's misunderstood, meaning we only see a physical expression. So, first thing I tell to any man, if you are watching adult content or you find yourself hooked to adult content, get some help right away. Whether it's me, I've got trainings and programs specifically at that level to be able to help you find somebody. There's, all kinds of groups or coaches and people helping in that regards. When it comes to performance, let's say in the bedroom, there's also, men, especially younger men, are experiencing more erectile dysfunction or, premature ejaculation now than ever before. Also, men are experiencing low testosterone levels now than ever before. And I'll take my one jab at Big Pharma. They're cashing in on this big time. Big pharmaceutical companies are really cashing in on this because they're prescribing TRT or testosterone boosters now than ever before. And it's not necessary. There's some lifestyle changes that could happen to really increase, like just, eating well. We're sedentary, we're sitting in our chairs all day long. Go back again, not that long ago, 100, 200 years ago, and our grandfathers, they were more highly testosterone filled men. And testosterone, we should understand now, we start to tap into the psychological aspect, is what makes us masculine, not just in our bodily, in our physical body, but also in our mental makeup, right? Because our body and minds are connected. So if I am more masculine in my body, I'm going to be more masculine in my mental makeup or my psychological disposition. So what slowly has happened is as we've lowered testosterone, as testosterone levels has lowered on the planet overall, there's less desire to have babies, which look at countries all over the world are now talking about that's a problem. China, who has 1 billion people, has actually just lifted their ban on one child because you have to have one child, right? They've actually lifted that because they see the trajectory of that being a problem. In the Western world, specifically, I'm in Canada, it's a huge problem, right? No babies. And Japan is massive problems, no babies, right? Which has both psychological as well as economic, consequences. So what happens is as men lower testosterone levels and as our testosterone levels get lowered, our estrogen levels increase. And so now we have like the rise of dad bods, right? Like, men with big bellies and, man boobs and all of these things. And we're trying to normalize it rather than challenge it. And we shouldn't normalize this. We should challenge it. We should say, hey, there is, if you are carrying excessive body fat as a man, you are more estrogen. And because of that, your psychological makeup will be less masculine. And that's really hard for a man to hear. Like I know when I first started learning this stuff and had to challenge myself, and being like, oh, but I'm a man, right? I'm a man. And yes, you are. I'm not saying that you're not a man, but comparatively speaking, and I include myself in that category, comparatively speaking, we're not as masculine as our grandfathers and our forefathers. And there's a consequence to that. And then from an energetics perspective, attraction needs polarization, right? So if you want to be an attractive man to a feminine partner, then you actually have to be in your masculine to create that polarization. That's what creates attraction. And that's what creates dynamic family and dynamic, both in and outside the bedroom, a dynamic life. So there's biological reasons that we need to look at this, psychological reasons, and then we can even say energetic or spiritual reasons in which we have to understand and really understand sexual energy and how it works in our lives. So from a performance issue in the bedroom, Yes, I've helped men, reverse things like erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation, take on practices like no-fap and semen retention, which are kind of like now like becoming more popularized through internet culture, right? So no-fap basically means to stay away from adult content and stop self-pleasure. And semen retention, which is a higher practice, really comes from more like tantric practices and spiritual practices, is actually about a man controlling that desire and harnessing, as Napoleon Hill said, harnessing that energy and then using that same energy and drive to do our masculine duties. And what are our masculine duties? To provide, to protect, and produce. Right. And that's not diminishing. Sometimes that's spun sometimes, like I've been attacked sometimes by like, oh, that's anti-women and I'm like, it's not, it's actually just nature's design. Right. It's not to diminish, it's not to say that a woman can't provide, protect, or produce, but we need to stop thinking about it just in terms of monetary money, right? Like we're just conditioned to think about things in such small dimensions. The whole work here is to open up the dimension of what S3X energy is. It's not just a physical energy, and it's not just meant to, like be pleasurable. Yes, sex is pleasurable, but there's also degrees to that, right? Because sex can be more pleasurable, for example, when you invoke emotion into it, especially for a woman. Adult content totally takes the emotion out of it. And therefore, also, it skews our perception of even good sex. It skews it, right? Because it's like, oh, well, like, and for most of us, like I'm talking about my generation and younger, but this also happens like I'm 40. My oldest student currently is 65. My oldest student ever is 69, right? Years old, right? So this is affecting men at all levels, but the younger generations really, really are affected because like I had a guy sign into my program yesterday. I said, when did you start watching adult content? And he said 11 years old. That's normal now. Because think about it. Kids these days, I was driving home from the gym this morning and I'm driving and the kids are getting ready to go on the bus to go to school and almost I'm giving an arbitrary number, 90% at least were on their phones. First thing in the morning, it's not even 8 o'clock. First thing on their phones. And what's available on this phone for free? Hardcore adult content. Not even just like a magazine or, like you had to, like there was a time you had to kind of like sneak into like the dirty section of the magazine store and be like, oh, like, right. It's just to look at something, you know, now it's just available and hardcore stuff. If we as a society don't think that that is having a deep impact on our psyche as a collective consciousness, it is. 25 to 35% of all internet content every single day is estimated to be adult content. So if the internet makes up our collective thought process, 25 to 35% of our mental energy is going into that. And then most men aren't just watching that passively, they're also self-pleasuring that. And then there's a whole now science around semen retention on every time a man ejaculates, he releases prolactin in his system. And prolactin is a testosterone stifler. That's why he wants to fall asleep after. Right? All right. It's like, why does he just want to go to bed after? Right? She wants to cuddle and be like, because she's filled with emotion and he wants to fall asleep. Right? And that sometimes creates a disconnect, right? After intimacy. And so semen retention or tantric practices actually allow men to feel the emotion of S3X, invoke that within themselves and within their intimate partner, and also then be able to harness that energy so that they can use that energy outside the bedroom to, again, go back to your basic duties, provide, protect, and produce. Providing doesn't always necessarily mean money because we know there are women that make more money than men, and that's fine. Like it's not, a man shouldn't necessarily be threatened by that, right?
Mhm.
But providing has so many different dimensions to it. So money is one dimension, but also providing a safe emotional space for
That's
her.
more important.
And it's more important. Yeah, it is more important. We've chalked up to providing as simply money. And that's why a lot of men feel almost threatened sometimes when they do meet a successful woman because they're like, well, I can't provide for her. Well,
But
you
that
totally can.
but that's also something that's ingrained, because if a man cannot provide him money, then he's less worthy.
Yes.
Because and then the man gets like belittled, and women
Yes.
are many women are raised to seek a man that's providing for her. So
Yes.
you keep it this circle going in that, if you start living that.
Yeah. And what and again, I'm talking because I work with men,
Yeah.
but they're right. So I tend to talk from the men's perspective. And also I'm a man, so I like to talk and teach from my experience as well as what I've learned. I can give you the theory and the biology and everything I've learned from a woman's perspective, but I can't talk about it from an experiential perspective.
Yeah, but
Right.
that's the beauty of this conversation, I think. If you have more women who listen to it, then we can go and have a conversation with each other. People get to understand each other better. You can
Yes.
grow together. It's like something beautiful that we need to do together.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I find is that women tend to be a little bit more open at the beginning of the conversation than men do overall, because there's less ego attached to a woman and her sexuality. She's a lot more open to be like, oh, okay. Because see, we can make the mistake to think that we think about sex in the same way. We don't,
No,
right? Right, that's right. And so therefore we tend to project like, oh well, I think of it this way, so she must think of it that way, but it's not the case. So the better that we can understand our differences in psychology, the better, like you said, we can actually have better open conversations that everybody gets educated. So women can very much help a man feel like a man, even if she makes more money or doesn't make more money. Like you could take the money out of the equation and recognize, open up the conversation, open up the dimension of what providing means. So providing for a man, like I teach my students, is yes, there's a money aspect, and fine if you are in a position to provide, and that way, great. And but your wife or your girlfriend or your partner, she may want to work. She may not. Like my wife doesn't work, right? By choice. If she
yeah,
wants to work, she can work, but she doesn't have to. Like we make enough money within our business, but she works with me part-time, right? She does all my like, my graphics and such and that type of thing. Um, I know some couples that the woman makes much more money. I actually know a good friend of mine. He's a stay-at-home dad, loves it, but he's very masculine. Like there's nothing about him that would be like, oh, this is a feminine dude, right? Like, right? He's a very masculine guy, and he takes care of the house and the kids. But he provides stability through his emotion because it's an energetic principle. He's very stable. So if we say what is masculine, not men, but what is masculine energy, right? It is stability, penetrative, visionary. It provides the stability. So I think of it like an electric circuit, the positive prong, the
mhm,
negative prong, masculine, feminine. So if masculine means order and stability, feminine is the dynamic opposite. Chaos
chaos.
and instability, right? Yeah, right. A little bit all over, right? So I love the analogy of like tango
Yeah.
dancers. So if you look at or like a figure skater, a couple figure skater, to me they embody the energetic principle very nicely. Generally, you have the man, and he's like very straight and stable. And what is he doing? He's providing this this space in which the woman can be like, she's doing all the flips and all the cool stuff, right? Like, she's providing all the flips and she's doing, and he is making sure that she's safe
Mhm.
to do that.
She
He's
doesn't bruise
providing,
herself.
that's right. That she can set the frame or parameters. She can lean on him and he will guide her and help her. And, and he will hold her up and he will lift her up and he will provide that space for her to do all of that beautiful stuff. Just like in a home, like I always say, like, okay, joke, like in my world, like I provide income generally, but my wife works with me, so we're both providing and contributing to that, right? Um, if this was my home, there would be four walls, like a mattress on the floor, and like my computer would work, and that's fine, and that would be it, right? But Sarah makes it beautiful. She provides beauty. She decorates it. She makes so in the feminine energy provides beauty, and you can see it's both that are needed. The word gender means, so the way that we use gender in today's world is not the same way the word gender is originated.
Mm.
So gender comes from the Greek or the Egyptian. So this comes from like the Hermetic principles or the alchemical principles. So the seven laws of the universe. The last one is gender, which means generate, rejuvenate, and to create, right? So gender was not, we use it in the terms of men, women, gender. But the word is much deeper. What it actually meant was the properties of creation, gender, that you had to have both for anything to work really well. And they had to work in harmony and cooperation. So value equal, expression different. And I think in the world of wanting to strive for equality, we've misunderstood different as meaning not equal.
Yeah.
Both are needed. You need both genders to exist, so yin and yang,
Yeah.
for creation. And so once we understand this dynamic play of masculine feminine energies, we can see it within ourselves. And then we can polarize, meaning if I'm in relationship, then I can lean more in my masculine, which actually kind of frees me of my feminine. Right? I can
Yeah.
be stable. I can be a man, meaning I can get up, I can work. Like the way I carry out my day is much different to the way Sarah carry out her day. Like I'm pretty rigid. Like 5:30, I'm up. I'm at the gym. I'm in the right. Like I'm like Sarah kind of gets up like kind of more as she pleases, right? I kind of as she still
Be
gets things
her.
done. Right? Yeah, but she's a little bit more like in that sense, right? And that's okay because
Mm-mm.
I used to actually, it used to almost bother me.
Can I ask
Like
a
you should,
question?
yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah, please,
Oh,
yeah.
I love hearing you tell your story, but
Yeah.
because you have a lot of women who have also a lot of testosterone. They have a very
Yes.
masculine energy. Uh, asking for a friend.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And that can be disturbing for a relationship, but it can also be disturbing in other areas of life because I am alone. I always take care of myself. I have been grown up with only two men in the house. My mom left when I was young, so I
Yeah.
had to be responsible and all the other things. So to unlearn those things, it's almost impossible. And if there is a man in my area, in my neighborhood, or as a client, it's like I really need to sit with that and just let it go, like, okay, be soft, be this, be that. But in relationships that can be causing a problem. how do you
Yeah.
how do you answer that question with your clients? Because I can imagine that for men who are dealing with a woman in the house who's very, very alpha, that can be
Mhm.
disturbing.
Yeah. So, first of all, there's a couple books. One is called The Queen's Code for strong women and how to learn to still be softer in relationship, right? And how to you don't have to give up. Remember that like me, both have masculine, feminine energy within us. It's more like a chemical makeup of like how much, right? And learning how to invoke what energy at the right time. Like there's times I need to be more in my feminine. For example, when I'm coaching and a guy is like, maybe he's going through a really tough time, I definitely drop more into my feminine, more nurturing, compassionate, understanding, intuitive. Uh, and then I'll kick his ass in my masculine. Now I'll challenge him, right? So the masculine grows through challenge. Masculine meaning the energy. Masculine energy grows through challenge. Feminine energy grows through encouragement.
Mhm.
So we need a dynamic of both to really become a full-fledged human. So if any woman asking for a friend, of course, if your friend, right, yeah, right, is it feels like, oh well, I'm in my masculine, well that's okay, right? Because masculine energy, for example, business is more of a masculine trait, right? Like when we're doing business, we need to be efficient, we need to get things done. So you need more masculine energy to be successful in the business world. But then when the business is dropped and you go on a date, it's learning to drop that and fall into the feminine and allow yourself to be led, which can be very scary, especially if there's been a distrust to men. And this is, again, and you could, the chicken before the egg, I don't know, right? Like I just don't know, right? When did we go off? I don't know. But we could say that one, as men, as a collective, not as individuals, but let's just say as an overall blanketed statement, so it may not be true individually, but as a blanketed statement, we could say that men at some point or the other lost the trust of women. And so therefore women had to step up into their masculine. What I tend to see happen, and vice versa, as women become more masculine, men have not necessarily been as eager to be a provider and protector. When you hear messages like, well, I'm an independent, well, I don't need a man. Well, here's the interesting about men's egos. Men need to be needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Women want to be loved and men need to be respected. The way a man interprets love is respect, not I love you. That's nice. Respect me, though. Now, as a man, we should also need to step up and earn that respect. Don't ask for to respect, when again you're overweight playing video games all day long and you're not doing those things that are part of your duty, then you're not going to earn that or command that type of respect. I find that if you really, as a man, and this is my own journey, as I started working out and stepping up in my business and giving up my vices and stop watching porn and stop smoking weed all day and all that stuff. So I used to do all that. Then naturally people respected me more.
Mhm.
And therefore I felt more in my masculine. I felt more confident, more commanding, had more of a presence, which is just naturally more attractive. But if a man allows himself to be unstructured and to be overweight and to be passive in his life, then he's in his feminine energy, and therefore he won't command that type of respect. She won't necessarily respect that. So as a man naturally steps up into his masculine, what I find tends to happen is it allows her to soften naturally.
Yeah.
Because she can let her guard down now. She can be safe. And because she feels safe, her anxiety naturally reduces. Her chaos kind of comes down a bit. Right? And because her chaos comes down a bit, then she can naturally respect him and allow him to lead. But there's dynamic and pull. Myself and Sarah, we call it the captain system. It's a really good system that we kind of created to invoke this. So let's say in many couples, there's a power dynamic or struggle that subtly happens, right? Anybody in any relationship knows this, right? And sometimes you're arguing about something, but you're not really arguing about the thing you're arguing about. And that's what you have to first understand. Whatever you're arguing about, it's probably not the thing you're actually arguing about. You just don't know how to articulate what you're actually arguing about. What you're actually arguing is he may feel like you don't respect me, and she's saying you're not loving me because you're not hearing me. So again, woman wants to be loved and a man wants to be respected. A man will go for a woman who loves him less, quote unquote, but respects him.
Mhm.
Right? So this is why men, he's always working. Why is he always working? because it's where he finds the respect,
Yeah.
right? It's why he likes to be at work, because he's respected there. A man will go wherever he feels respected, because that's his interpretation of love. So if a man comes home and she belittles him or she shows no respect to him, he's going back to work, right?
Logically.
Logically, because he's
Yeah.
like, why would I come to a place where I don't? Because it's in a man's psychology to want respect. So, the captain system, basically, let's say myself and Sarah, let's say let's use decorating the home as an example, as a simple thing, right? Okay, at that point in time, I need to know when to just be quiet, because Sarah is way better at decorating the home than I am, which I've already acknowledged, right? So let's say we start to feel or sense that subtle dynamic, that power struggle. Say, okay, stop. Who's captain? What means is who's leading.
Yeah.
Okay, when it comes to how the home is decorated, Sarah's leading. You're captain. I'll give my input. I'll tell you what I think or don't think if you ask. I'll say I like that or don't like that. But at the end of the day, you make the decision, and I'll trust that decision, because I also trust your skill set to make this place look beautiful over my skill set to make this place. It might look good to me, but it doesn't look good overall, right? So I trust that. In other decisions, I'm captain. You know, when it comes to generating sales or what we're going to do next in the business, I'm going to captain that, because I'm going to trust my ability to be a hunter or provider more than yours. So even though even though I can consider, and I want to consider what you're saying and your mindset, I'm going to be captain. And you have to respect it, that sometimes the captain doesn't always make the right decision.
Yeah.
Such is life. We cannot expect perfection, but help each other grow. So maybe I captain something and I make a decision. It wasn't the right decision. It doesn't mean that I should all of a sudden now lose position of captain all of a sudden, right? You know, right? And that's where we start to we lose respect for each other, and we start to what I call neutralize. So in relationship, it depends what you want from your relationship. There's another book, and it's called The Way of the Superior Man. And I honestly believe every woman should read it. Every man should read it, but every woman should read it also, to understand their man better. And to understand men better, read the book The Way of the Superior Man. And what he talks about is that he talks about Sarah just wrote a note for me because she's right here, right? So she goes, even in small things like dinner and gardening, like have a captain system. Who's captaining it, right?
Yeah, but that's beautiful, because that makes you a team. That makes you a good team.
Makes you a team. Yeah, that's right. Makes you a team. And that's the whole point. It's harmony. And you have to have a decision maker at the end of the day. Someone has to make the decision.
Of course.
And it's fine, right? Like, and again, so in myself and Sarah's dynamic, Sarah will make the decision for certain things. In other things, I'll make the decision. But we collaborate, right? Like in our finances, we collaborate. Okay, this is important. This is important. This is important. One aspect in our finances that was a learning curve for us was like, because I'm so business focused, right? That I wasn't considering what her interests were in the finances, and I would prioritize the business, which appears to be like I'm prioritizing myself first. But in my psychology, I'm like, no, I'm not I'm actually prioritizing us as a family unit. But because I hold the business as the providing factor for the family unit, and I and the business are very integrated, it's like, oh, you're providing for yourself. So once that came up in conversation and I recognized, oh, well, that's not I'm missing the feminine aspect of that dynamic. So now what we do is we have a budget in which Sarah gets, we call it Sarah Care money. I get Nick Care money, and Sarah gets Sarah Care, which is money that is hers to do whatever she wants with, however she pleases, and it's budgeted. And since then, she's been able to do projects she's wanted to do and take courses or have her own money, which gives her a sense of freedom and not so much dependence on me. And also, and here's another thing, man, you should understand, at that time, I was also flip-flopping a lot on the business and what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. And I would start things and not finish it, which is highly like unstable, which means it doesn't provide a very safe energy or protect, which it goes back to the provide. The first job of providing is provide stability in your energy. And so as men, we cannot be unstable emotionally, spiritually, physically. Because if we are unstable or have instability in our energetic makeup, women are much more sensitive to our energy than we are to our own energy. They can sense where we're at.
Smell it.
Totally smell it. Yeah. And that's what men should understand. You can't lie to her in your energy, right? Like she can sense where you're at. So therefore, you have to do the things that make you stable. So what are some things that make you, well, let's talk about some things you need to get rid of. Looping it back to adult content. It makes you unstable. It makes you frustrated. Because you're frustrated sexually, she's going to be more repelled from you sexually. And she's going to feel insecure that she can't satisfy you, right? Like, oh, okay, he's right. Stability in mind. When you are hooked on alcohol or drugs or social media, what your mind becomes unstable. And because your mind is unstable, and by the way, she's way more attracted to your mind than your physical body. That's why, sometimes like guys are like, how did that guy get that woman, right? Like from a looks perspective, right? And you think, well, because I bet you psychologically he's very intelligent and has his shit together.
Yeah, because it's such a turnoff if a man doesn't have his shit together. Be honest.
That's right. It's a turnoff. If a man doesn't have his shit together, it's a turnoff for women. And that's where you get like, you sometimes in like the men's movements, you hear like kind of like terms like the rise of the boy child.
Wow.
right? Like or the man boy, right? He's 40 or 50, but he still like acts like a child. He's unstable. He doesn't have his shit together. And then he wonders why she's not turned on by him or not attracted to him, or she doesn't respect him, or why doesn't she let me lead? Leadership is earned through trust and consistency, not commanded. And this is where sometimes the idea of like a toxic man can come into play, where a man may be like, I'm the man, you follow me because I'm the man. No. If you have to ask her to follow you, that's a good sign that you're not stable enough, or you're not in your masculine enough. She will happily follow you if you're truly in your masculine, which doesn't mean that you're a hard ass or anything like this. You have a dynamic. I like the definition of sense controlled and sensitive for masculine. Sense controlled means I'm in control of my body and mind. I'm stable. I can control my food. I'm not overeating. I'm healthy. I can control my tongue, meaning I know when to speak, but I know when to be quiet. I can control my sexual energy. So sense controlled. Tongue, stomach, genitals. Control those in a line. It all starts with tongue control. This is a yogic practice. They teach this in yoga, and I teach this to my guys. The first part of self-mastery is controlling your tongue. Controlling your tongue is when to speak, when not to speak, and what to speak of and what not to speak of. And then second thing is control your food.
Yeah.
Right? No overeating.
No overeating, but it's the same for women.
Same thing. Absolutely. Because a woman that's also controlled in those three things is very attractive.
Yeah.
Healthy is sexy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The healthier a woman is, the more vibrant she is. And, you know, sometimes women get insecure as they get older because they think, like, well, I can't compete with that 20-year-old, right? Actually, you can. Very, very much. Not that you should be in a competitive mindset anyways, but that's, you know, just like we're just talking from like a kind of a raw perspective right now. But here's why older men are attracted to younger women is because younger women are vibrant. It's an energy thing. It goes back to energy. It always goes back because everything, this whole universe is energy.
Everything is energy. Absolutely.
Everything is energy. So understanding energetic principles is the most important thing because then you'll get out of what the conditioning or social conditioning of society is and the programming that's coming down from multiple spaces and areas to try to get us to conform to certain things and ways. You can see beyond that. Just follow the energetic principles. It doesn't lie, and they're universal, meaning they're forever. They're stable. They never change.
Mhm.
Social dynamics change. We were talking a little bit about countries before we got on, right? Countries change. All that changes. But universal principles, they never change. They are forever.
Yeah.
And so once you understand that the what a man is attracted to is not necessarily a younger woman as in age. What he's attracted to is vibrancy of the feminine energy.
Yeah.
So if a woman is healthy, she's vibrant, he will be attracted to her.
Good to know.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. All right. That's it. It's like it's if you are vibrant. Now, also he'll be attracted to think of like a male plug and a female plug, a receiver and receptor. He will be attracted also to a more receptive woman, meaning that's the Queen's Code. How to soften,
Yeah.
how to soften and allow him to lead. He should earn that trust, but help him out,
Yeah, of course. You
right?
have to be, meet each other in the middle,
Meet in the
right?
middle a bit, right? Like give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit. Now, if he's broken your trust numerous times, that's different. This is where you have to use your wisdom. There's no black or white. This is where it becomes, you have to use your wisdom, right? And say, okay, well, I let this guy lead me and he led me to poverty and blah, 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 blah. Well, okay, maybe make your choice, right? Right. Is he going to make some mistakes? Yes. But so are you. So be easy, right? Like chill out, have fun, you know? But allow him to lead a bit. And if you soften and allow that, he'll love it because it isn't a man's nature to lead.
Yeah.
Every man wants to be a leader at some way, shape, or form, whether he wants to lead a nation, lead a company, lead a revolution, lead his family, lead his kids. It is his desire is to lead because it is his nature. And if he does it really well, naturally people will follow. He doesn't have to try. A dictator says, follow me or I'll force you. That's a dictatorship. We don't like dictators because we don't like to be forced to do something. We would rather be inspired. A real leader inspires people, and therefore people naturally follow that leader because they're inspired. They can sense that they're doing it from a true place of love or service. This guy really wants to help me. I'll follow gladly. And men follow other men. I follow men. Some men follow me. My students follow me, but I follow my mentors and coaches. So we're all leaders and followers. It's the same side of it's one coin, different sides.
Yeah.
Does
Beautiful.
that
Yeah.
am I yeah, are we following? Because I'm trying to put in a lot of information on a lot of
Yeah.
the
We are way
subject is so deep.
We are
Yeah.
way over time, but I really
Okay.
appreciate it because I really love this conversation. It's just like something that needs to be said and needs to be
Yeah.
shared and needs to be talked about because I think a lot of people who are listening heard things that they were not aware of.
Yeah, it's such a deep topic. Like I said, I'm 10 years, and still learning and still
Yeah.
going, oh wow, like it's you could study this for the rest of your life, which I plan on doing and still be learning. And so just like to kind of wrap up, because we kind of did a, we talked about a lot of different things, so it's like it may be hard to follow the train of thought. But basically, there's a biological perspective to masculine, feminine, which shows up in human society as man and woman, and the dynamics between man and woman. So anybody who's interested in having a awesome, healthy relationship, they should understand the psychology more than the biology. The biology plays a part for sure, and they're interlinked. You can't separate the biology and the psychology, right? Once you understand the psychology and biology of sexual attraction and energy, it will already give you great insights to have a great relationship, both in and outside of the bedroom, and to really keep that dynamic alive throughout your entire relationship. Then, from an outside the bedroom perspective, we should understand that energy and how it plays in our marketing. And why do you think almost every, like, why do you think they show a car and then if they're marketing to men and then they put like a hot woman next to that car?
Yeah.
Because because sex drives our deep psychology, but generally at an unconscious level. All we're doing in this conversation is let's bring it to the conscious level. That's what I'm doing. Is
Yeah.
I want, because it was such a massive difference for me, and I understood myself and life so much deeper once I understood sex better. And then we recognize porn is not sex.
Mm-mm.
It's entertainment. And in my opinion, we won't go into that rabbit hole. It's psychological warfare.
Absolutely. Yeah. We do
That
that
is what
another
it
time.
is. That's, yeah. We could do a part two if you like,
Yeah.
just on that
Yeah.
subject
We
alone.
do that.
But I'll just plant that seed. Not only is it not actual S3X, it is psychological warfare, and it needs to be squashed and addressed and really highly educated on why. So that's a whole thing. So first thing I tell everybody is get that out of your life. You will just notice more stability in your mind. You will notice more peace, more calm, and more satisfaction overall. Then understand the dynamics of masculine, feminine energy, not men, women, but masculine, feminine energy. And once you understand that dynamic, you will have a greater understanding of why things are the way they are, why your relationship might be the way it is, why your business or your money is the way it is. Like, you will understand deeply what is going on and how to start to tweak those dynamics like yin yang so that they come into balance and harmony. And so there's, for women that are strong women, powerful women, but want to learn to attract a strong, powerful man as well. The Queen's Code is a great book and a great resource. There's also a book, I believe it's called Cupid's Poison Arrow, which is really good as well. And then I think all people should read the book. Two books that I mentioned, one called The Way of the Superior Man. Even if you're a woman, read The Way of the Superior Man. Really, really insightful. And another book that I think everybody would really benefit from understanding the energetics or laws of the universe is called the Kabbalion, which is the seven hermetic principles, which derive from the knowledge of ancient Egypt. And you will see these seven principles and how they play out in all aspects of life. The seventh principle being gender, and talking about masculine, feminine energy and the relationship of the mind and masculine, feminine energy. And it will give you so much insight into your own life and how to create success in all different aspects or dimensions of life.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you for everything that you shared. We really have to wrap up now.
Yes.
So, Nakula, what can you offer to my audience? Do you have a program? Do you have a group? Whatever it is, can you leave your link in the comments so people can connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. I have a free program called the Free Transmutation Guide, so you can take it. It's a great starting point, and then from there, it takes you to my website and everything else, where you can connect with everything else that I'm doing.
Beautiful. So thanks again. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your time. And I want to thank everybody for watching or watching the replay. Feel free to connect with Nakula because it's really amazing what he is sharing. Thank you. Thank you. See you soon. Bye bye.